Hi, welcome to iTTV. I'm Dr. Meena, your biology teacher, and we're going to continue on lesson 3 of Form 5 biology. And the topic for today is none other than the composition of human blood. Okay, in today's lesson, we are going to learn about the composition of human blood. By the end of today's lesson, you should have it in your fingertips, all the components of the human blood system. Now, what is the blood system?
Blood is the largest organ in our body. 10 pints of life force, coursing through thousands of miles of arteries, veins, and capillaries. Those blood vessels carry blood to every other organ, keeping them functioning and thriving. Our red blood cells carry oxygen and nutrients. Our platelets stop bleeding and help to heal our wounds. Our white cells protect us against infection. And the yellow liquid plasma in which they are suspended carries an array of proteins that regulate bleeding and clotting.
And what is blood? Would you believe if I were to tell you that the blood is very much a connective tissue, much like your muscles and bones? Blood is a very specialized connective tissue with suspended cells in a fluid environment. And there are two components to the blood, whereby there is a cellular component which comprises all the types of blood cells and the fluid component which comprises the plasma. Now let us take a look at the slide. Okay, here is a chart on the human blood. We see here that the cellular component makes up 45% of the human blood, while the rest, which is the plasma, makes up 55%. The cellular component consists of the erythrocytes, or the red blood cells, and it amounts to about 5 million per milliliter of the blood. Next to the erythrocytes are none other than the white blood cells, or the leukocytes, and they make up about 6,000 to 10,000 per milliliter. And last but not least, the smallest of the blood cells, which is called as the platelets, they make up about 250,000 cells per milliliter. Now, if you can see under the leukocytes, so the white blood cells, they are broken down into two categories of cells. One is termed as the granulocyte and the other as agranulocytes, and we'll be taking a deeper look in the coming slides. Now, turning over to the fluid portion of the human blood, plasma is made up of serum and fibrinogen. Now, fibrinogen is the clotting factor that normally you experience when there is a wound and you have a very darkened scar. That is fibrinogen, for your information. The two main components of the human blood, okay, we can see a much more detailed breakdown of the plasma component. The plasma is actually a pale yellow liquid which comprises more than 90% of water. The remaining 10% are a variety of dissolved substances such as plasma proteins, nutrients, mineral ions, nitrogenous waste, antibodies, enzymes, and hormones. While the 45% of blood cells comprises erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets. In this slide, we see the leukocyte stained in purple. In actual truth, the leukocyte is a colorless cell, but the Leishmania stain used enables us to visualize the leukocyte under light microscopy. As you can see, the leukocyte is the largest of all the blood cells, followed by the erythrocyte and platelet. This diagram is an electron micrograph of the human blood, and here you can see it more clearly, the erythrocytes, which appear as a biconcave disc, a large leukocyte with granular appearance, and small platelets. Now let us take a look at the red blood cell or the erythrocytes. The red blood cells are biconcave disc shaped. It means they are ellipsoidal and it has got a large total surface area to volume ratio. You know what that means? It means it increases the rate of gaseous exchange by simple diffusion. The red blood cell is also a very flexible entity, hence it can squeeze through all the blood capillaries. The red blood cells are termed as red blood cells because they contain hemoglobin, which is an iron-containing pigment that causes the blood to be red in color. Do you know the red blood cells carry no nucleus, merely to accommodate for more space for hemoglobin? The diameter of a red blood cell is 8 microns while its thickness is 2 to 3 microns. We're going to see a little deeper into the characteristics of the red blood cell that enables it to be a very versatile transport medium. Now, in this diagram, we will see that a cubic millimeter blood contains 5 million erythrocytes. And you can also see that a single hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 oxygen molecules. Hence, it forms an oxyhemoglobin, whereby it can carry 8 oxygen atoms. Now let us do a simple math just to see the versatility of our red blood cells to carry so many oxygen molecules. 1 milliliter of blood has 5 million red blood cells. 1 hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 oxygen molecules. 1 red blood cell can carry 250 million hemoglobin molecules. Now, can you imagine how much of oxygen is carried by 1 milliliter of blood? A simple math will do. Wow, that is a lot of zeros, and it actually accounts to 1 times 10 to the power of 15 oxygen molecules per milliliter of blood. Now, can you see how versatile our blood transportation system is? Now, let us go back to this slide. The red blood cells do not only transport or deliver the oxygen from the lungs to the other parts of the body, they also play a very important role in carrying carbon dioxide from the body tissues to lungs in the form of carboaminohemoglobin, or sometimes even termed as carboxyhemoglobin. The carboaminohemoglobin amounts to 23% of all the carbon dioxide that is transported. Where are the red blood cells produced? And if they don't have a nuclei, what does become of them? Let us take a look at the next slide. The lifespan of a red blood cell is 120 days. It is continuously being produced in the bone marrow. The bone marrow of the long bones, ribs, skull, and vertebrae. Every second, 2 million red blood cells are destroyed and replaced, and they are destroyed by phagocytes in the liver and spleen. Now that we have known about our red blood cells, let us look at our white blood cells, which play a major role in the defense system. The white blood cells, unlike the red blood cells, have a nucleus. However, they are colorless because they don't carry the hemoglobin pigment. The leukocytes or white blood cells, unlike the red blood cells, have a nucleus, but they are colorless owing to no hemoglobin. They are much larger than the red blood cells, and they amount to about 6,000 to 10,000 in every milliliter of blood. There are no fixed shape for the leukocytes, and they can change their shape. There are majority of them fall into two categories of leukocytes. One is termed as the granular leukocyte and the other as agranular leukocyte. The leukocytes are produced in the bone marrow and they are transferred to the thymus gland for maturation. Sometimes they are also kept in the lymph nodes in preparation for any form of defense. The granulocytes comprise of three types of cells, namely basophil. The basophil has a S-shaped nucleus. The eosinophil has a double-lobed nucleus, and the neutrophil, which has got a multi-lobed nucleus. The agranulocytes consist of the monocytes, which are the largest of all the leukocytes, and it has a kidney-shaped nucleus, and the smallest of all the leukocytes, which are the lymphocytes, have a spherical shaped nucleus. In this diagram, you can see very clearly that the granulocytes have a granular cytoplasm and a lobed nucleus. They are produced in the bone marrow, and 72% of leukocytes are granulocytes. Now, take a closer look at the functions of each of these type of cell. The basophil secretes heparin, a very important component that prevents blood clotting. Eosinophil plays a major role in allergic response, while neutrophils have phagocytic functions in which they engulf and digest foreign materials. As for the agranulocytes, we will see that the monocytes also play a similar function to neutrophils. The monocytes metamorphosize into macrophages to assist in the defense mechanism by engulfing invaded materials. Now let us take a closer look at the agranulocytes. Agranulocytes, unlike the granulocytes, differ in the fact that they have a clear cytoplasm and a spherical or a bean-shaped nuclei. The monocyte has a bean or a kidney-shaped nuclei, and it is the largest of the leukocytes. It circulates in the bloodstream until it metamorphosizes into becoming a phagocytic macrophage in the tissues by engulfing cells that have turned to become mutants. The lymphocytes are the smallest of the leukocytes, but they play a very important role in long-term defense mechanisms whereby they produce the antibodies. Now we're going to take a look at another component of the blood cells, which is termed as the platelets. The platelets are the smallest of the blood cell components and they are very fragment-like, but they play a very important role in blood clotting. Let us take a closer look. The platelets are very small in size and they are irregular in shape. They are also produced in the bone marrow. They don't have a nuclei much like the erythrocytes, and they only amount to about 250,000 in a milliliter of blood. The platelets initiate blood clotting by releasing thrombokinase. Finally, we reach the fluid component of the blood, which is the plasma. The plasma is a pale yellow-like fluid and it contains a lot of dissolved material. Much of the content of the plasma, though it is water, there is a huge 10% of dissolved substances. Let us take a look. The contents of the plasma, as shown in this chart, are very clear. Let us take a look at it one by one. The plasma protein comprises of the albumin, which is a carrier protein, the globulin, which forms most of the antibodies, and the clotting factor fibrinogen. The mineral ions are none other than sodium, potassium, and chloride. The nutrients, glucose, amino acids, vitamins, cholesterol, and other lipids. And of course, the nitrogenous waste are urea, uric acid, creatinine, and ammonium ion. The dissolved gases are oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen, while all the hormones and enzymes have to dissolve in the plasma so that they can be transported to all parts of the body. Wow, that is a lot of work for the plasma. My dear students, so far we have covered our topic on the composition of blood. Can you tell me the difference between blood and plasma? Yes, the blood comprises the cell component and the fluid component called plasma. Have you come across the term serum? Do you know what does a serum mean? The serum is the plasma component of the blood minus the clotting factors such as fibrinogen. Now, today we have learned the composition of human blood. We have learned that the human blood comprises of the cellular part and the fluid component. The cellular part comprises the red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. The red blood cells play an important role in the oxygen transportation and carbon dioxide transportation. The white blood cells play an important role in the defense mechanism, and the platelets play a very important role in blood clotting. As for the plasma portion, though 90% of it comprises of water, the 10% carries all the required substances to all parts of the body. Can you see what a wonderful circulatory system we have and how wonderfully equipped and versatile the human blood system is? With this knowledge, let us do some questions. Question 1. Which of the following components of the blood are involved in the transport of carbon dioxide? 1. Plasma. 2. Platelets. 3. Red blood cells. And 4. White blood cells. The options for A. 1 and 3. B. 3 and 4. C. 1, 2 and 3. D. 1, 3 and 4. I'll give you all a little time to think over. Yes, the answer is A, 1 and 3. The red blood cells play a very important role in transporting carbon dioxide. They transport 23% of the carbon dioxide in the form of carboxyhemoglobin, or in other words is called as carboaminohemoglobin. The rest of the carbon dioxide is transported by the plasma in the form of bicarbonate ions or dissolved carbon dioxide. This eliminates options 2 and 4, which are platelets and white blood cells. Platelets play a role in blood clotting, while white blood cells play a role in the defense mechanism. Hence, both are excluded as options in the transportation of carbon dioxide. Now let us move on to question number 2. Figure 1 shows a diagram of a blood cell. Which of the following statements is true about the blood cell shown in figure 1? Can you guess what is that diagram? The options are A, 1 and 3, B, 1, 2 and 4, C, 1, 2 and 3, and D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Yes, you all have guessed it right. The answer is D. The above diagram refers to a red blood cell or an erythrocyte. An erythrocyte does have a biconcave disc shape, and it contains a hemoglobin, hence no nucleus, and it aids in carrying the oxygen from the lungs to all body tissues. Now we take a look at question number 3. Figure 2 shows an agranulocyte. Which is true about the agranulocyte? The options are A has granular cytoplasm, B has lobed nucleus, C has clear cytoplasm, D contains hemoglobin. The answer is C, has a clear cytoplasm. Now let us understand why our choice is C. Agranulocytes we have studied earlier. They do not have a granular appearance. They are called agranulocytes because they do not have granulars in the cytoplasm. And their nucleus is not lobed, not like the granulocytes. They are much more shaped spherically or in kidney shape. Hence, the option B, which has lobed nucleus, is excluded. And definitely it does not contain a hemoglobin. Hence, that eliminates option D. Okay, take a look at figure 3. Figure 3 shows a leukocyte X carrying out its function. X is A, neutrophil, B, basophil, C, eosinophil, and D, lymphocyte. The answer is A. Neutrophil. Neutrophils have multi-lobed nucleus, and that is very evident in figure 3. Basophils have an S-shaped nucleus, while eosinophils have a double-lobed nucleus. Lymphocytes have spherical nucleus and hence do not fit in the above diagram. Now, in order to conclude our lesson for today, maybe you can take home some questions for pondering. Take a look at this slide. State the main function of red blood cells. The red blood cells play a major role in transporting oxygen from the lungs to all the tissues in the human body. Likewise, they also carry carboxyhemoglobin or carboaminohemoglobin, which is the waste product of carbon dioxide from the tissues to the lungs. Hence, the red blood cells play a major role in the transportation of gaseous substances. The second question. Explain how the structure of a red blood cell is adapted for the transport of oxygen. Dear students, if you can recall, the red blood cell is biconcave in shape and it does not carry a nucleus. Hence, it has got a lot of space to accommodate hemoglobin, which is the pigment that enables the oxygen to be transported. And the red blood cells are very flexible that they can move through even very minute spaces within the blood capillaries. And take a look at the third question. State the composition of human blood. I'm sure you are all able to recall all the components of the human blood as we have discussed in the earlier part of the lesson. Till we meet again in our next lesson, signing off from iTTV, I'm Dr. Meena.